All right, here we go. Kiami Davael, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing great so far. Thank you for coming by to the Lens of Yashu. Great body of work, by the way, just with
Well,
your
thank
career and
you.
everything so far with Matilda being Lavender and then the Steve Harvey show in the house as your role as Brianna, um, as well as like Conan and then also Bruno and I think also Moesha as well.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here as well. So I just want to start off with my first question as well. So you
Sure.
grew up in Kentucky, right?
I did.
Um,
Yes.
in which part of Kentucky?
So I was actually born in Danville, Kentucky, but I lived in Harrodsburg, which is um, about maybe a half hour from Lexington, which is where the University of Kentucky is located. So I say usually like Harrodsburg, Lexington, that area. Mhm.
True. And so, what was like the performing arts scene like in Kentucky? And were there like any like influences like in the way while growing up there?
So there wasn't much there as far as different opportunities per se. However, I did actually find a modeling agency called Images, and that's pretty much where I got my start. And they're located in Lexington, Kentucky. So that was where I pretty much had my opportunity to go to different modeling conventions. And so they pretty much enabled me to showcase my talent and find my manager at the time, and the rest is pretty much history.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting so far. I know that you mentioned that in some previous other interviews as well, and you did explain how you got into acting was from seeing
Hmm.
like Whitney Houston and all like music and stuff
Yes,
like that as well. So I think that was
yes.
like already covered as well too. But like usually in this discussion right here, like for the second question, it's more about like with what's going on like around. So like usually
Hmm.
with Kentucky, it's like in the South, like between like North Carolina, Tennessee, and everything else too. And then there's usually like different viewpoints there, with Confederacy and higher prevalences of racism around. So
Hmm.
just growing up in Kentucky, have you ever had like any past experiences of like racism in pro Confederate, pro conservative groups like or organizations? Have you ever like witnessed like the question actually says like since Kentucky has like the past experiences of racism, pro Confederate groups, and like so forth, have you ever witnessed or experienced any like racism or bigotry while growing up there?
Um, I grew up there until I was about, well, I lived there, shall I say, until I was about seven, almost eight. And one instance in particular was actually when I want to say I was probably maybe three, four, something around in there. And I was at daycare, and I actually was playing with a another kid who was the same age as me. And she had a baby doll, and I wanted to play with her doll. And she actually told me that I could not play with the doll because her doll does not play with Black people. So that was kind of my first experience with racism and kind of what that meant. I didn't fully understand it. I did go home and have a conversation with my mom and explain to her what was told, and then we had to have that conversation probably earlier than she would wanted to have had regarding my race and things like that. However, it happened. That's one of the fondest memories as far as racism within the state itself. I've had unfortunate experiences outside of living in Kentucky, but that was definitely, I know, within the state of Kentucky. And like I said, I was probably maybe like three or four or so, but that's really the only one there that I remember.
Yeah.
So,
I definitely understand too, and just like realizing within many like other states as well, like a lot of people do tend to have like more issues like worse than that. Like one
Mm-hmm.
example was I was actually reading Centoya Brown's book that she recently released after being released from prison for just the situation that happened. She explained in the book that a lot of people didn't see her as like black in a way because she did grow up with like a biracial mother while living with like
Oh,
a
wow.
Christian like family too. So usually with some people
Mm-hmm.
too, they'll tend to have like experiences like that where they do question their race as such, but then like with others,
Mm-hmm.
it could be
Mm-hmm.
just based on like not seeing like enough representation and such with color, like enough representation just like seeing dolls, like just like your example as well, which is like very interesting too.
Right. Right. Yes, it's very unfortunate. And unfortunately, even today, it still exists.
Yeah,
So
which mean. So just
absolutely.
getting into your story, like as like an actress and like a screenwriter. So like, what
Mhm.
made you decide on wanting to become like an actor and a screenwriter? Like just after like your recent like writing credit for one of your for one certain film, as well as like your acting career too.
Sure. So I think I have known for as long as I can remember that that was my calling, that that is my passion, and that is what I was supposed to be doing with my life. So it was just something that I think we all have those gifts and talents that we're blessed with. I think that I was just blessed at an early age to know what it was that I was put on this earth to do. And so I remember, as you mentioned, Whitney Houston, my favorite, like one of my idols, to be honest. And so, having the opportunity to watch her concerts and watch, Bodyguard, and me just saying that this is what I want to do. This is it, like to entertain people and to, be in movies and TV, and at the time that was really all that it was just, oh, I want to be on TV. But as I got older and realized what that meant, and understood the expression behind the artist and behind the art, and understanding the work that that took and the sacrifice and the dedication that that took, it developed, of course, into just a full-blown passion.
Right.
However, I just, again, still think that I knew just from 2, 3 years old, this is it. And so, I was fortunate to have a mother who was um, nurturing of my passion and of me, of course, as her child, and making those sacrifices to allow me to live my purpose. So it's definitely a blessing. But yes, to answer your question, it was, I mean, without a shadow of a doubt, from an early age.
Yeah, exactly. And it's pretty evident like from what you've done so far too. And like most people they have like known you as like Brianna in the house, as well as Lavender and
Hmm.
Matilda, which you've already explained in previous interviews as well. Like this other question that I have too was more based on like I'm just kind of like jumping into this one question.
Sure.
So like with various shows like Moesha, like Conan, Promised Land, In the House,
Hmm.
Grown Ups, and like much more. Like there's like different types of like studio sets where most TV shows and most films are for Black audiences versus like other shows that would be for like a general public. So
Hmm.
just in that question, what was it like working in those very show sets where some might be viewed by more Black audiences versus others of like more white audiences in a way?
Well, you know what? To be honest with you, I I didn't really feel that there was much of a difference, which was definitely an amazing thing. I think that either way it went, when it came to, of course, those predominantly Black shows, we were able to have predominantly African American crew for the most part. But even still, it just there wasn't really a difference between, say, me working on In the House versus me working on The Pretender. or me working on Conan. It wasn't, I didn't really feel that there was much of a difference as far as how I was treated on set, or how anyone was treated on set, or how the production was handled. I think that we were just all there to just do our job and to show our love for our craft in whatever way that we do that. So that was definitely a blessing. And I think that I was also so young that a lot of the times I may not have even realized if there were any differences. Um, but I still think that we were just all treated the same, and we were all there to, again, just do our job and express ourselves through our art, and that is what we had the opportunity to do. So
No doubt, no doubt, and especially just with the well like rounded film like Matilda too. This question, I don't know if it was like really asked as much, but like, how did you get the role of like Lavender in Matilda, and what was like the experience like when you auditioned for that role and took part like in that film as well? Like, was it like a very great experience? Was it like sort of average, or was it like completely different?
sure, it was actually, I mean, I think that audition was pretty standard, to be honest. But it was very, very exciting. Of course, it was my first major film audition, so that in itself was different at the time for me. But it was essentially doing pretty much the same thing that I would do on any other audition. Of course, now it's a little bit different because I'm, older. However, it was essentially, making sure that you go in, that you're prepared, that you have fun, be yourself, and give it the best that you can. And even, to this day, that's pretty much the same principle. And then you leave it there. You do the best that you can, and you leave it. And I believe that what is for you, and it will never miss you. So that experience was, pretty educational for me in a sense, because it was my first, film audition. And I did really still learn a lot. I learned a lot while I was filming. And I believe that, Danny was an amazing director, an amazing person, an amazing artist. He is just an amazing mentor, and just fantastic to learn from. And so is Ria. I mean, it's years in the business combined. So it was, definitely a blessing. However, as far as the audition process, same as pretty much any other audition that I've had. I think that what made it even more special is the fact that I did get to audition with Danny initially. So that, is definitely something I don't take for granted. So,
What you mean? And in your previous interview, you had stated that you had your birthday party in like I think the break after like your set. So I guess like it was like
mhm,
also like a very great experience as well too. Like just having your
yes,
birthday party and just like doing this film that you loved.
absolutely.
True. And
Absolutely. And I was so surprised. I didn't even know that they were planning it. So that was nice.
I know what you mean too. And you know, Matilda, like a lot of kids love that movie, especially with like a lot of adults too. Like it's like syndicated
Mhm,
everywhere you go. You can go on like
yes.
ABC, like Family, Nickelodeon, Disney, and you can watch it like either way too. So after like that your first major role in Matilda, what was the impact like for you after everything was like wrapped up, and like once it was like finally shown in the public, did you ever receive like any like recognition, criticism, or like other impacts from that movie? Like did people go on the street say, oh, that's that girl from Matilda, can we take a photo, that type of stuff?
Um, all of the above, actually, to be honest. I definitely have, I mean, even to this day, have people who have stopped me and say, hey, you were limited. Oh my gosh, that's so awesome. And, we'll ask to take pictures or whatever the case may be. And then as far as the aftermath, if you will, of the film, it has opened so many doors for me. I honestly don't believe that my career would be the same. without it at all. So I've had opportunities that I don't feel like I would have had otherwise, or maybe in different settings, shall I say, um, without that. And I think that it did help shape the artist that I become, as far as, I mean, even just again relating to like the work ethic and the dedication and understanding, the behavior that you have to have when you are on set, when you are working. And there may be moments, when you may be stressed or may not always be feeling 100% or whatever the case may be, but this is your job. And so you do what it is that you need to do. Now, that is not saying that you neglect yourself. However, at the same time, you do understand that this is my job. This is what I am blessed to be able to do. And the icing on the cake is that I'm getting paid for it.
Exactly.
That's the icing on the cake. So I learned so much of that from this film. And then just being able to have, like I said, doors that have opened because of it is amazing. Not so much the criticism. I think maybe because I was so young and it, was meant to be, I don't think, judged super harshly as we may judge films now. So not so much of that. However, I can say that I criticize myself. I am my own critic when it comes to my work. So, and I have learned that and learned what to look for and what to improve on and things like that from working on that set and the other sets that I have been blessed to be a part of. So,
And it's pretty evident like everywhere you go to, like you could like finish a movie, but like I still have more work to do, like with all these like other stuff too, like with TV shows or
mhm,
credits or auditioning or creating your brand too. Like with me, like the interviews like that I do, like even if I finish this interview too, like that doesn't stop me from working on other like products that I have to do. Like I might have this interview
absolutely.
one day too, and then I would have two other interviews tomorrow, or maybe like
Mhm,
several interviews like for the rest of the month too. So it's all about
right.
being persistent and just getting to your grind too. Either way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's a constant workflow. It's a constant grind. It is a constant, um, just keeping your tools sharp and continuing to allow yourself to be used in that artistic way. So it's when you love to do it, it's never work. That's the way I see it.
No doubt. And
So,
later on, you were in other TV shows like the Steve Harvey Show, Moesha,
mhm,
House 2, where you're acting with various acts like Steve Harvey, who's like now like the host of Family Feud, Cedric the
mhm,
Entertainer, who has like more roles like on the way to LL Cool J, and then also Alfonso Ribeiro as well too. So how was it
right.
like working with them? And since most of these actors gained like much more recognition over the years. How do you feel now since they've managed to be like well known like everywhere now and like just being a part of working with them too?
Absolutely. I mean, everyone that you named, I mean, they're legendary, absolutely legendary. So again, it's a blessing. It is a blessing that I do not take for granted. And I mean, from of course working with Steve Harvey and having to be quick on your feet because he's a comedian, so he's very, big on improv, and so is Cedric. So, and then working with, of course, LL Cool J was amazing, and being able to just, kind of learn from his artistic energy, which he's been in the business probably, I want to say he probably started even before I was born, to be honest with you, or maybe around the time that I was born. So being able to learn from him in different aspects and trying to keep a straight face when you're in a scene with Alfonso is difficult because he is absolutely hilarious and one of the most sweetest individuals. So and to see their continued success and to see, that they have that longevity is beautiful. they absolutely deserve it. And I am beyond excited and beyond happy and proud of them, and of the opportunity of everyone that I have been able to work with and have the opportunity to get to know is amazing. And I, again, don't take it for granted. So I am blessed. I am absolutely blessed. And I even had the opportunity to work with the late Miss Ruby D and Mr. Osley Davis, and not knowing at that time immediately who I was in the presence of, until after I finished working one day and my mom told me, "Do you understand who you are working with?" And so then I started doing, some research, and she was showing me some films, and I was blown away. And I mean, I really honestly and truly give all honor to God, because it's nothing that I've done, but it is His will and His timing. So just kind of circling back, I am grateful for everyone I've had the opportunity to work with and what I have learned, and to see them, continue to shine in their own respects. Absolutely, they deserve it.
No. And with Ruby D, that was in the show Promised Land, or was that?
Exactly.
Yeah, because I actually saw that last night actually while like researching more about you, like, and
Mm,
that specific scenes like that you guys did too, like it was interesting. It was interesting too because at the beginning they were finding out that the church was burned down, and
mm-hmm.
the young character, the little boy, like he was going to the gravesite where you like kind of met up and explained that in that tombstone it was uh your uncle, like in that show at the time he died from like World War II. So I guess in
Right.
that case too, it was like also pretty interesting being on that set too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it was one of the experiences, and I mean, I sit and I think back, on occasions of everyone that I have been blessed to have the opportunity to work with, and I'm thinking, this is just, I've been in this business for probably over 20 years now, and I'm just getting started. So I'm just thinking, the individuals that I have had an opportunity to work with, and the sets that I've had the opportunity to be on, and even in those particular scenes that you were mentioning in Promised Land, and the the little tidbits of artistic correction that I was able to receive from Miss Ruby. And even when I was filming Bruno with Shirley, the ability to learn from her, from Shirley MacLaine, was phenomenal. So I am forever, forever, forever grateful.
That's great. And also, I know like in most cases too, like within your film career, you've had great days and you've had bad days as well. So,
Mhm.
in this question, have you ever had like a bad experience while taking part like in a certain film and TV show? And did you ever regret taking like part in that role by any chance, or was it all good from there?
You know what? Honestly, I cannot say that I have, to be completely honest with you. Again, I have been blessed to be in amazing company, with amazing directors, producers, amazing cast. So I've never had, bad moments on set, to be honest. I have done nothing but been able to learn and grow from those experiences. Now, I may say that there may have been auditions where I didn't necessarily feel that um, I may have done my best, in hindsight. Maybe, there's some things as far as like certain delivery of lines or things like that that I may have done differently. But as far as like on set, I've never had a bad experience, to be completely honest. I have always been welcomed and nurtured and provided for in that space. So, yeah, that's definitely also a huge, huge blessing.
It's great. I'm glad to hear from it too in a way too, and I'm glad that they've enjoyed your presence as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. So it's been fantastic, and like I said, it's just getting started. So I'm so excited to be able to continue and move forward.
Yeah, no doubt. So in Bruno, I've seen like a couple scenes on YouTube.
Mhm,
One being that you were like the gun-toting private school girl, the private school girl that was
mhm,
friends with
mhm,
the main lead at the time. And
mhm,
in this white scene, in this one scene, actually, you were pushed to the side, I think, or like I think it was either the character that played Bruno or you that was pushed to the side, and I think you said like leave him alone, and then one of the castmates said like the N word to you in a
mhm,
way too, and like your character was
mhm,
also seen to be like disobedient to like because of like in the like in the other scene like there was a school teacher that was saying please give me your gun and you didn't want to give the guns to, so tell
mhm,
me like
mhm.
more about those like two scenes in a way, or like that film experience, and how did you feel about that particular scene, like where that kid said the N word, since like racism was like mostly viewed and commercialized, during the 90s often at the time.
Um, you know what? That particular scene was honestly probably the hardest for me, and I don't think it was because of the actual scene itself or the words being said. I think what was difficult for me was the emotion that I needed to portray and getting to that space. And once I was finally able to get there, we did the scene in one take. But it was just me, being able to find that space to deliver what it was that I needed to deliver. And again, a huge, huge learning experience because Shirley MacLaine directed that film, and I was able to learn from her just up close and personal, face to face. And so that was, I mean, something that I, again, won't take for granted. I think that that particular scene in that particular film, the reason why it was written and the story behind it and the principles that are behind it and what's trying to be conveyed, I still believe, stands true today. And it's something that the world needs to hear. And really that film is so much about acceptance and about, different stereotypes that exist and trying to bring light and shed light to those and see how those particular stereotypes affect people. So being able to be in that position to tell that story through a character who was the complete opposite of me just as a person um, was definitely something that stretched me artistically. So that was definitely I think we filmed probably for about 4 months. So that was almost like a acting boot camp for me in a way. So,
No doubt. And from seeing that type of stuff too, and seeing it like in other TV shows as well, you kind of get like a weird experience, like seeing someone being exposed to that, like in that light too. Because
mhm,
I'm very like more like I'm very big on like television shows and with movies too. With one being Oz that I watched like a year ago, which was like on HBO back in the '90s. Like you've had characters that played like a variety of different roles that you never really expected, but you do know that like it's gruesome and it kind of just sensationalizes like the view. Like you had J.K. Simmons who played like J. Jonah Jameson in like Spider-Man, like the Spider-Man series, where in this show he played
mhm,
neo-Nazi, like a Nazi, like an Aryan Brotherhood member who was open to doing a lot of other stuff too. And then you had like other actors like Iman Walker who played a pro-black Muslim like at the time too, while like in other roles he either
mhm.
played a villain, he either played a chief firefighter in that episode too. So like seeing like even with you being that type of girl like in Bruno versus like Lavender and Matilda, it kind
Mhm.
of shows like a lot of like differences in a way.
Absolutely, absolutely, because they're, of course, two different characters from two different backgrounds, and um, so that's, where I was, like I said, able to be just stretched artistically, and kind of step outside of that comfort zone, which I think that's really what it's all about, is being able to step outside of your comfort zone,
No,
and take risks. So that was that moment for me.
no doubt.
Well, the first of many, but
I know what you mean. So in your career, you were always known as like a child actor, like in the early to late '90s, from ages 8, like in Matilda, to I think 11 or 12 by in Bruno, or would it be
Mhm,
all right? So,
mhm.
like just being known as like the child actor, like in the industry, or like as a child actor in the industry, were there any like opportunities missed or chances that you were like blackballed, like due to your previous roles as like a child actor? And do you feel that with the whole stereotype of like child actors falling into like a bad slump of like getting roles in this present day, like in today's film industry, do you feel like it's been like prevalent so far?
So, I haven't had any experience where, I've been labeled any, certain kind of way, or prevented from having any opportunities. I can't, so that's not really something I can speak on directly. Um, it may exist, and I'm not saying that it doesn't. I can only say that, from my own standpoint, that's not something I have experienced. And as far as um, being able, like within my childhood, missing, any type of opportunities, I think that in certain ways, I had to grow up a little bit quicker because of what I was doing as far as, on sets and acting. But my childhood was still, amazing. And it was still, I mean, a very normal childhood. Um, but again, having to understand and grasp the concept that there are certain sacrifices that you do have to make because you have to work, or whatever the case may be. Um, but as far as, like you said, being blackballed or anything like that, that's not really something that I've ever experienced. So,
Yeah. I know what you mean. Because like nowadays too, with actors that were like child actors like in like many TV shows and films, like they try the best to get like some roles like in today's like certain like films or TV shows of today,
mhm,
like Orlando Brown, who played Eddie in like That's So Raven.
right,
Like,
right.
sometimes too, it can be hard for him to get like a role in one TV show or another because most people might see him as just Eddie from That So Raven. So like,
Mhm,
some pieces too,
mhm,
we do tend to see it like as prevalent in a lot of stuff too. And there's like various like TV shows and like stuff that actually jokes about that type of matter too. Like in Family Guy, they had this one episode where Stewie was in a child's commercial, like a child advertisement commercial, and like
mhm,
in one
mhm,
scene too, Brian like talks about the child actors that were like in certain roles that what happened to them like later on afterwards. So sometimes too, some people like in some cases too, they do talk about it. In other cases too, we don't really see that anymore. So like with other
right,
acts like
right,
Drew
right.
Barrymore, who was well known in ET too, she managed to still remain. She managed to still have like a successful career, even being as a child actor like during those times too. So
Right, absolutely. And I think that, there are instances where there is a certain stigma, if you will, around child actors and child artists and things like that. I think that it really, really helps if you have a strong foundation, and if you have a strong, also if you a strong sense of self and you're grounded. I think that that definitely helps as you grow up in the industry, and as you grow up, kind of in front of the camera, if you will. That's, I think that is crucial, because I think that maybe that is sometimes where a disconnect happens, and where, bits and pieces kind of fly off, if you don't necessarily have that strong foundation. And then there are just instances where, they individuals may have that foundation, and then they make a decision on their own to do whatever they feel that is best for their life at that time. And um, that's one of the beautiful things about life, and about God, is that you get choices. So when you have a choice to make, and you have to sit in those consequences, good or bad, of whatever decision that is. So I think that I was just fortunate enough to be surrounded by just so much love and care and compassion, and have that foundation where I had boundaries. My mother set clear boundaries when I was younger, as to what it was acceptable and what was not acceptable, as far as behavior and things like that. So having that and taking that into my adulthood, I think that really just made a huge difference, because I understand now what I can accept and what I cannot accept, and what is it, not only for myself but from others. So I think that when you're able to have that, then you don't necessarily fall into that stigma of the child actor gone bad, if you will. So
And that's a great discussion as well to speak on as well. So, just getting on to the last couple questions as well.
mhm,
Like I think with 2016 and 2017 in the film industry, it was prevalent at the time too with the Me Too movement and like the Times Up movement that has been
right.
prevalent with like a lot of actors and actresses being exposed for a lot of like mishandlings and abuses and harassments too.
Mhm,
So with the
mhm.
Me Too and Times Up movement, like in the film industry, like what are your thoughts on those movements? And I don't know if I would say this because of your experience, but have you ever experienced something like that too? But and like during like your acting experience in a way, or would it not like apply to you in that matter?
Sure. So I have to say I am in full support of that movement, because I think that it is imperative for that to be brought to light. Um, as far as within my acting career personally, that is not something that I've experienced, gratefully. However, I do know that it does exist. So I again am in full support, and I think that there should be no shame in speaking out and bringing light to that situation, so that it can be rectified, because I don't believe anyone deserves that. So,
It's interesting too. And yeah, exactly. Um, you still do you still like live in Kentucky, or you are like in a different area like right now?
oh no, I do not live in Kentucky any longer. I am between Atlanta and Los Angeles.
Yeah, true.
So, mhm,
So in recently, like last year too, like in I think this is like in June or July, I think within that time, Dave. But
mhm,
Breonna Taylor, who was killed in her own home by the police,
mhm,
which caused like a major like revolution within like the Black Lives Matter movement, and
right,
for the protection of Black women, regardless too. So with the death of Breonna Taylor and everything that's like evident in that case, especially with her being from the same state as you. How
mhm.
did the death relate to you in any way? And did it ever like hit home for you, especially with Kentucky's like past histories with racism and pro Confederacy?
You know what? I think a it's not even for me, it wasn't even so much like my home state per se that it happened in. It was the fact that it happened. And so it completely y- is relatable to me, because I am a Black female. So this could be my sisters, it could be my mom, my aunt, my cousins, me.
Yeah,
So that is what really resonates, and that is what is infuriating. Um, so I definitely believe that regardless of the state, that there has to be a change. There has to be something that is done about the constant fear that Black people would live in just stepping out of their house. There has to be something done about the fear of being in my house as she was, and my life being taken. The house is, my home is supposed to be my safe haven, and for her to be sleeping and for the proper protocol not to be taken, to make sure that you have who you are looking for before you enter into someone's home, announcing yourself before you enter into someone's home. So that is what resonates with me, because that, in a way, is my sister. So that is what hit home for me.
Exactly. For me right now too, just like reading onto it, like I wasn't big on the Breonna Taylor case at the time
Hmm.
because with what happened with George Floyd, but like I recently found it out like later on, like within the next couple days that they announced it. And it's weird that you could fire the officers who trespassed at the home, but they can't
Right.
be like arrested or like criminally charged with killing this young black woman, who was just at her home at the time, just sleeping, and
Absolutely.
like they could come in the home like without a warrant, do whatever it takes, and
Yes.
easily kill. So it's kind of like shocking to me that they didn't really take this stuff seriously, but only
Hmm.
just do it like just firing them over something that's not really relevant, like this young woman
Absolutely.
being murdered, which is still shocking to me too.
Absolutely. 100%.
No doubt. And like as a black woman, do you feel that the recognition, importance, and protection of black women has started to improve like now than in previous years when it comes to like anti-violence and protection, or do you feel that it's a completely different, like there's never gonna be like any change or people?
Sure. I feel like there is some change in the right direction. I think that we are seeing, even as much as our Black women want to support and protect our Black men, I think that you're seeing a um, a rise of Black men stepping in to also want to protect, the Black women, because their mothers are Black, aunties, sisters, whatever the case may be. Um, do I feel like there's more improvement and that we have definitely ways to go? Absolutely. But I do believe that we are trying to step in the right direction. I definitely do believe that, and I think that we have made more advances than, of course, previous years. I do believe that, again, racism still exists, and we do have a long way to go. Absolutely. So
And I know this would be like the last question that I usually like ask for everyone
sure.
on the platform too. What are your plans for this year in terms of any like acting opportunities or other stuff going on in the way for you two? And do you have like any like final words that you would like to say for any creative or person like pursuing the dreams, like as far as like acting or anything else too?
Sure. So I do have some productions that I am working on. So those would definitely, and of course, with COVID, it's a different approach to things now. But there are things that I definitely am working on, productions that are in the works. I think for this year, I really just want to just go all out as far as, artistically. I do want to continue to develop and continue to produce not only my projects as far as acting, but my music as well. I also do have people in mind that I am wanting to reach out to, because those are individuals that I do have a strong desire to connect with and work with. And then as far as the future, and as far as those individuals who are looking to uh, really want to make this a career and a passion, what I always leave individuals with is, know that you have to love it. This is not a field where you can pick up and say, um, oh, this looks fun, and that be it. It is fun. However, it is work. It is work. It doesn't feel like it, but it is work. So you have to love it. You can't just like it, but you literally have to love it, because there's rejection that comes with it. So being sure of yourself and knowing that even when I get told no, that it has nothing to do with me as an individual or as an artist. That was just not the door for me. And yes, it may sting. Yes, it may hurt, but that is just not that door that I was supposed to walk through.
No doubt.